मैंने तो भाई जो अभी एंड मोमेंट को बोल रहे थे कि अभी कर दो तो अच्छा है। स्टार्ट में तो अभी हो जा रहा है अभी मेरी रिस्टार्ट हो जा रहा है सिस्टम हाँ लेकिन यार इसलिए उसका रिस्टार्ट वो बाद में तो अभी रिस्टार्ट हुआ अभी हाँ इसलिए उसको रिलीज कर दीजिए मैं कहा चीजें भी ऐसा परेशान करती हूँ पता नहीं इसलिए और ये बैंकिंग का मैं कल का दे रहा हूँ हो गया हाँ तो अच्छा मोबाइल हाँ मैं बोला मोबाइल नहीं नेट बिजली का कैमरा बंद होता है कैमरा बंद होता है
overall socio-economic development of our place. Before starting with the session, I request Mr. Sadhanand to please welcome Mr. Vijay Bajpayee, Chairman of Bhopal, which medicine. Now, I request Mr. Rahul Bajpayee, Principal Advisor, stating please welcome I request Mr. Manoj Jain, Senior Advisor, staging to please welcome Mr. Amit Jain, Accountant. Request Dr. Irani Parpujari to please welcome Mr. Patravan Singh, General Secretary. I request P.P. Patel and to please welcome Mr. Rahul Chaudhary.
It's okay, we are family.
So before starting with the session, now I request Mr. Patravan Singh, sir, Member Secretary, to please give the welcome address for the session.
Thank you, Mr. Nirupam Nehroza, Mr. Meher Machili, Mr. Jain, Rahul Chaudhary, Manoj Jain, और आज इस सभागार में उपस्थित AIGGPA और पॉलिसी प्लानिंग के विषय के मामले एक्सपर्ट, जैसा कि आप सभी को मालूम होगा कि कल ही यूनियन बजट पेश हुआ है पार्लियामेंट में, और मैं समग्र रूप से ये कहना चाहूंगा कि ये अपने आप में अमृतकाल का पहला और सबसे ज्यादा महत्वाकांक्षी बजट प्रस्तुत किया गया है फाइनेंस मिनिस्टर के द्वारा, और बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट्स जो यूनियन बजट के एनालिसिस से हमने निकल के सामने में वो हमारे मुद्दे से किस तरीके से फायदे पहुंचा सकते हैं, मतलब की वर्कशॉप का उसका प्रमुख उद्देश्य है। मुझे उम्मीद है कि जितने भी यहाँ पे सेक्टर एक्सपर्ट है AIGGPA के और जो गेस्ट स्पीकर आए हुए हैं बजट के हाइलाइट्स को बताएंगे, और मैं अपनी तरफ से कुछ पॉइंट्स रखना चाहूंगा जो मुझे समझ में आता है कि बजट में इसे बहुत ही अच्छी तरीके से प्रस्तुत किया गया है हमारी यूनियन मिनिस्ट्री ने, और इसको क्रियान्वयन करने का जो रोड मैप बनाया है वो भी बहुत ही अच्छी तरीके से। जैसा हम सभी को मालूम है कि हमारे मध्य प्रदेश की अर्थव्यवस्था में 48% कॉन्ट्रीब्यूशन एग्रीकल्चर का है, तो इसमें एग्री स्टार्टअप के लिए एग्रीकल्चर एक्सीलरेटेड फंड की स्थापना की गई है। 20 लाख करोड़ के ऋण का प्रावधान किया गया है वेरियस सेक्टर, जिसमें डेयरी और जो फिशरीज और एग्रीकल्चर की सेक्टर्स हैं। अच्छी बात यह है कि हम लोगों ने कोऑपरेटिव पॉलिसी का फॉर्मेशन किया हुआ है, बहुत ही जल्दी उसे हमारी स्टेट गवर्नमेंट से उसको अप्रूवल भी मिलने वाला है। उसमें हम लोगों का जो प्रावधान था कि हम टैक्स को ना पूरी तरीके से डिजिटलाइज करें, ताकि हमारे जो ग्रामीण जन खासतौर पर जो किसान है उसका पूरी तरीके से फायदा उठा सके और डिजिटल बैंकिंग के थ्रू अपने आप को पूरे वर्ल्ड ओवर से कनेक्ट कर सके। तो उसके लिए भी 2115 करोड़ का प्रावधान किया गया है, जो कि बहुत ही अगले तारीख में, और कहीं न कहीं जो मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ कोऑर्डिनेशन की जो फॉर्मेशन की जो नशा है यूनियन मिनिस्ट्री यूनियन गवर्नमेंट की, उसको वो पूर्ण कर रही है। तो ये मकसद का मैंने आपको मेंशन कर ही दिया है। कई सारी जैसे मिलेट्स के लिए जो श्री अन्न के उत्पादन और विपणन संबंधी संस्थाओं को जो सपोर्ट दे रहा है वो भी इसमें प्रावधान किया गया है। डिजिटल जो सार्वजनिक अवसंरचना की जो स्थापना है एग्रीकल्चर के लिए, इसका भी प्रावधान किया गया है। रूरल इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर डेवलपमेंट पॉइंट को और स्ट्रेंथन करने के लिए भी इसमें प्रावधान किया गया है। ये एग्रीकल्चर की बहुत हाईलाइट्स थी जो कि मैंने ड्रॉ किया करके यूनियन बजट की स्पीच के माध्यम से। सेकेंड इम्पोर्टेंट है, क्योंकि मेरे पास एडिशनल 4 मेंबर का वेरी डेवलपमेंट अथॉरिटी का भी है। लास्ट ईयर ही हम लोगों को 2500 करोड़ का एडिशनल सपोर्ट मिला था, जो कि 50 करोड़ के माध्यम से हमें प्राप्त हुआ था, जिसके माध्यम से कहीं तो 48,000 करोड़ की जो हमारी कैपिटल बजट हम लोगों ने लास्ट ईयर 22-23 में प्रावधान किया था, उसमें बहुत बड़ा एडिशन था। इस बार वो बढ़ करके लागू हो रहा है और 10 लाख करोड़ का प्रावधान पूरे किया जा रहा है। बहुत अच्छी चीज है। कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर कहीं भी इंडस्ट्री एक्सपर्ट भी शेयर करेंगे कि हमारे जो मित्र हैं कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर से किस तरीके से उसका स्पिल ओवर इफेक्ट होता है अदर सेक्टर, चाहे वो स्टार्टअप का हो, चाहे वो दूसरे जो कंजम्पशन साइड की इकोनॉमी को सपोर्ट करती है, वो कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर ही सबसे बड़ा फाइनली उसको मूव होता है। तो ये एक इम्पोर्टेंट है। हमारे यहाँ जो एयर कनेक्टिविटी की जो गैप है उसको फिल करने के लिए भी केंद्र सरकार की तरफ से 50 नए ग्रीन फील्ड एयरपोर्ट बनाने का जो प्रावधान किया गया है। रिसेंटली इन लोगों ने जब ग्लोबल इन्वेस्टर समिट की थी, मैं बताते हुए मुझे प्रसन्नता हुई कि कई सारे प्राइवेट इन्वेस्टर्स का इंटरेस्ट आया था कि हमारे यहाँ हम एक ट्रेनिंग स्कूल बनाए। आपको मतलब होगा कि के पिछले हफ्ते ही मैंने फाइनेंशियल एक्सपर्ट एक न्यूज मैंने पढ़ रहा था आर्टिकल में कि ईयर ऑन ईयर का जो ग्रोथ हुआ एयर ट्रैफिक का, एयर पैसेंजर ट्रैफिक का, वो 48.1% का हुआ है। तो कहीं ना कहीं बहुत सारे लोग एयर कनेक्टिविटी से जुड़ना चाह रहे हैं। हमें लगता है कि केवल भोपाल इंदौर और ही लोग एयर ट्रेवल करते हैं, ऐसा नहीं। गाँव के भी लोग जो बाहर निकल के काम करने के लिए जा रहे हैं या फिर छोटे छोटे टाउन्स के भी जो लोग हैं वो भी एयर कनेक्टिविटी की सुविधा का लाभ लेने के लिए इंटरेस्टेड है। तो हमारे यहाँ जैसे रीवा का नया एयरपोर्ट बन रहा है, वो भी इसमें प्रावधान किया गया है। नए बड़ी जो सूत्र बनाने के प्रावधान है उसमें भी हमारे बहुत सारे हेलीपोर्ट को लिया गया है। आने वाली जो स्टेट बजट में उससे कहीं कहीं रिफ्लेक्शन देखने को मिलेगा। तो ये बहुत ही सुखद अनुभव है कि केंद्र सरकार ने हमारी जो स्टेट की प्रायोरिटीज को बहुत अच्छी तरीके से यूनियन बजट में रिफ्लेक्ट किया है। अर्बन इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर डेवलपमेंट फंड की भी स्थापना की गई है। मैं इससे पहले अर्बन डिपार्टमेंट में ही था, तो मुझे याद है कि मेरे रहते रहते मैं वहाँ पे फाइनेंस डिवीजन हेड कर रहा था। तो वहाँ पे 2 म्युनिसिपल बॉन्ड इशू हुए थे, भोपाल और इंदौर के, वो पूरी तरीके से सब्सक्राइब हुए थे। आने वाले समय में टीयर 2 और टीयर 3 उसको भी किस तरीके से म्युनिसिपल बॉन्ड का लाभ मिल सके, तो इसके भी फंड की स्थापना की गई है अर्बन इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर डेवलपमेंट फंड के रूप में। ये बहुत ही सुखद न्यूज है सभी के लिए, क्योंकि सबसे प्राइमरी मूवर रहता है अर्बन इकोनॉमी। अगर अर्बन में जितना ज्यादा कंजप्शन हो, ज्यादा से ज्यादा वहाँ पे इन्वेस्टमेंट आता है, तो उसका स्पिलओवर इफेक्ट रूरल जिनको कहते हैं रूरल और अर्बन के बीच के जो एरिया उन सब में हमें रिफ्लेक्शन देखने को मिलता है। जैसा कि आप सभी को विदित है कि एजुकेशन ब्लॉक प्रोग्राम शुरू हो चुका है और उनको 500 ब्लॉक्स में से 42 ब्लॉक्स हमारे प्रदेश के चयन किए गए। ये भी एक अच्छी अचीवमेंट, बहुत ही जल्दी उसका लॉन्च होने वाला है। ये 42 ब्लॉक्स ऐसे हैं जो कि आमतौर पे एस्पिरेशनल है, जिन्हें डेवलपमेंट की पैरामीटर्स में बहुत सारी सपोर्ट की आवश्यकता है, तो केंद्र सरकार का उसमें भी जो है सपोर्ट मिलने वाला है। तो मध्य प्रदेश को इस तरीके से हमारी पूरी इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर वाले जो कंपोनेंट है इस बजट में पूरी तरीके से उसमें रिफ्लेक्शन हुआ है। हमारी जो आकांक्षाएं हैं उसमें पूर्ण हुई है। स्वास्थ्य शिक्षा के क्षेत्र में भी बहुत अच्छी प्रावधान किए गए। 117 नर्सिंग कॉलेज की स्थापना हेतु इस बार के बजट में प्रावधान किया गया है, जिसमें बहुत सारे नर्सिंग कॉलेजेस हमारे मध्य प्रदेश को भी मिलने वाले हैं। मैंने एक और चीज बताना चाहूँगा, AIGGPA पॉलिसी एंड प्लानिंग कमीशन अंडर द लीडरशिप ऑफ प्रोफेसर सचिन चतुर्वेदी, हम लोग जर्मनी एंड इंग्लैंड से भी ना अपने जो पैरामेडिकल स्टाफ है वो इनसे ट्रेन करके वहाँ पे जो क्या कहते हैं सर्विस करना चाहते हैं, उसके लिए भी हम लोगों ने कॉम्पोनेंट अपनी तरफ से वर्टिकल निकाला हुआ है। तो ये कहीं ना कहीं उस दिशा में हमें अचीव करने के लिए सफल हुआ है। ICMR के लैब की स्थापना, डिजिटल लाइब्रेरी की स्थापना, शिक्षा के क्षेत्र में स्किल जो है प्रधानमंत्री जो स्किल डेवलपमेंट मिशन है उसका 4.0 की एस्टैब्लिशमेंट करना, कहीं ना कहीं जो ग्लोबल स्किल पार्क है जो हमारी भोपाल में स्टैब्लिश हो रही है उस दिशा में कारगर साबित होगी। स्किल आपको सभी को मालूम है कि मैं अगर हमें इंडस्ट्री में वैल्यू चेन एमिशन डेवलप करना है तो उसके लिए स्किल लेबर की सबसे ज्यादा आवश्यकता होती है। और इसके लिए मध्य सरकार ऑलरेडी बहुत सारे प्रयास कर रही है, तो इसमें कैसा आने वाले समय में सपोर्ट मिलेगा। साइकिल डोमिनेटेड हमारा स्टेट है और पिछले साल ही हम लोगों ने निवारणी योजना की शुरुआत की थी और उसके माध्यम से जो हमारे व्हीकल्स जो भी मेडिसिनल प्लांट का प्रोडक्शन कर रहे हैं उनको किस तरीके से मार्केटिंग चेन में हम इनकॉर्पोरेट करें, इसके संबंध में ही वो पूरी योजनाओं के प्रावधान किए गए थे। तो उसमें भी इस बार जो खास तौर पे ग्रुप के लिए है इसके लिए विशेष प्रावधान किए गए। 740 एकलव्य स्कूल की स्थापना करना, उसे स्ट्रेंथन करना, ट्राइबल ग्रुप्स में जो उनकी डेवलपमेंट के संबंधित जो प्रावधानों को सशक्त बनाना, ये सारी चीजें यूनियन बजट की 2023 और 24 में प्रावधान किए गए। ये अपने आप में मध्य प्रदेश के लिए आज कल का दिन बड़ा महत्वपूर्ण दिन था और अचीवमेंट वाला दिन था कि हमारी जितनी भी एजुकेशन है उसको ये यूनियन बजट पूरी तरीके से करता है। मैं समझता हूँ कि मेरे तरफ से इतना ही, मैंने जो एनालाइज करके इस बजट को निकाला है और उम्मीद करता हूँ कि काफी माइन्यूट तरीके से उन्होंने जो भी अपनी फाइनेंस पॉलिसी हुई हमारे आज इस मंच में सभी को प्रस्तुत करेंगे। मैं धन्यवाद देना चाहूंगा एआईजीजीपी के टीम को और पॉलिसी एंड प्लानिंग कमीशन जो उन्होंने जॉइंटली आज इस बजट के प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस कम चर्चा के लिए रखा हुआ है। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद और मैं उम्मीद करता हूँ इस बजट की जो डिलीवरीज है वो मध्य प्रदेश की उन्नति और आत्मनिर्भर बनाने के लिए थैंक यू।
Now I request Dr. Rafi Chauhan to set the context for today's session on budget analysis. Thank you, ma'am. So, good morning, everyone. Here I am presenting what we talked a lot about in last 48 hours. I will not discuss in detail the budget analysis because we are having experts here. Here I just want to bring your attention on the broad numbers of the budget which have been discussed yesterday in the economic survey and the union budget. Next slide. So we can see the GDP growth that is expected to be 6 to 6.8% in financial year 2023 and 2024. And the per capita income stands 1.97 per lakh, and it is saying it is being doubled from 2040 onwards. And in economy is expected to grow by 7% this financial year. And the capital expenditure of this financial year has been increased by 63%. And RBI project the inflation rate is about 6.8%. So these are the few numbers which I show you here. The first one is the fiscal deficit. I think everyone is aware about the fiscal deficit. This is the difference of revenue and total expenditure of the government, and it is an indication of the government borrowings, right? So we can see here in the current year, like in 2023, it is about 6.4%. And the FRBM Act, I think everyone is aware about fiscal responsibility and the budgetary management. And it was meant into the 2003, and the last amendment has been done in 2021. And it was decided that the fiscal deficit, we will keep it around 3% and 0.5% for the exigency. So we can see here, it is 6.4%, and yesterday the finance minister said we will try to keep it low up to 10.9% 2024, and we will bring it down further into 4.5% in financial year 25-24. And inflation, you can see there is CPI, consumer price inflation, that will show the retail one, and the WPI, which is quite high, 6.8% to 11.5%. Next.
Next slide.
Okay. In the next slide, I just want to show you the capital expenditure. It is showing an increasing trend, and in the current year, it is 7.5 lakh crore. So it is been announced that it will increase by 33%, and it will be around 10 lakh crore. So it is a good news for the infrastructure and the investment. And if we see the GDP growth, so GDP growth rate is quite high in 2016-17. That was around 8.26%, and it will be in 2021. It is below minus 6.6%. We know the reason why the GDP is low on that time, because just because of COVID inflation, and after then GDP is trying to recover in 21-22. It is again 8.95%. And in this current year, it would be around 7%, but for the prediction for the next year is around 6 to 6.8% in between that. That is the prediction of the institutions or IMF. Next slide. And if we see the Indian economy, like if we see the share of the primary, secondary, and tertiary share of the Indian economy, we know the agriculture is having a share of 20.19%, service sector 53.89%, and industry 45.92%. And same growth we can see, like service sector is growing in this financial year by the rate of 9.1%. And if we see the GVA, that there's a gross value added of the industry is at 4.1%, and for the agriculture sector, it is around 3.5%. So I think these were the bigger numbers which I just want to put here, and after that we will discuss in detail about the budget session, and we will listen to our experts. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you, Sophie. Starting with today's discussion on budget analysis, I would like to introduce our first speaker, Mr. Rahul Chaudhary. Mr. Rahul Chaudhary is a principal advisor in Center for Economic Trade and Innovation at AIGGPA Bhopal. He has a diverse background in leadership roles in the corporate sector and specializes in public policy, research, and government advisory. His focus is on technology-led changes in governance and global value chain. And he has deep understanding of development finance and financial inclusion. He has also assisted technology startups in advisory roles and has a research interest in entrepreneurship development. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Chair. So normally the way things happens in budget is it's inundated with numbers, and I think Swati again did exactly that. Lots and lots of numbers, and if you have seen the newspaper today, I think there are more numbers than words in all the newspapers, and somehow these numbers are assumed to be known to everyone. These numbers are something which people do assume that you have an understanding if you want to know what the budget, what when we are talking about budget. I was under the similar impression till a few years back, and then I realized that probably we need to look at things a little more differently beyond just numbers. And that's when I was supposed to speak, when I was told that we have to speak on this one, I thought maybe we need to figure out something different. And I did exactly that. And I did what most of us do, the use of technology. And on 30th of January, I asked ChatGPT, what should an ideal Indian budget look like? Can you go back to the presentation? Right. So it's important, right? Because there are so many people, they all of us have different opinions about it. I thought, let me just check what ChatGPT has to say. Just next slide. So this is what ChatGPT says in the ideal Indian budget should be. There are 10 points. Very about the font, it's a little hazy. Out of these 10 points, when I looked at the budget and when we heard the budget, we realized that at least 8 of them are being addressed. One is partially addressed and the other one is probably not so much in details. So it's actually quite phenomenal how technology is changing this entire landscape in all areas that we can we think about. Okay. So on the basis of this, when you change when I okay. So on the basis of this, there is a short summary of what the budget looks like and what does it really mean to a commoner and to citizens like us who perhaps are not in the who are on the recipient side of it. And then there's a longer analysis. So we'll start with the shorter one first in the next slide. And the way it comes out is that this budget is a case of fiscal prudence. And I think that's been a thematic underpinning of the budget. It has tried to support the economy by way of capital expenditure, and it has not gone ahead for growth chasing of specific sectors. It has gone on supporting the consumption by having more income in hand, and it has not done a star announcement, which a lot of us were expecting because of an impending general election next year. So in that sense, it's a combination of few things done and few things avoided or not being done. But if you look at it slightly in a detailed manner, it is about transition. It is about hinting towards certain transition, which perhaps would be more reflective in the long run. And I think this is where we need to focus on, because the analysis has to be not here and now. It also has to keep a perspective of slightly longish view of things. So after reaching this, the immediate next point was, if it is long run, then we need to really understand where do we stand
overall, right? So my next 3-4 slides are going to talk about the context of what and where India stands and how does this particular budget relates to that particular context. Okay, so that's the way in which I tried to structure it. So next slide, please. India's economy is kind of a miracle in that we all have heard and we all have known, but more importantly, it is becoming bigger miracle in recent times. So there is a general ranking of top 10 economies that get populated by different organizations, world organizations, and till recently, India was not featuring it. And suddenly, when India featured it, came straight away on 6th position, which has never happened. So big countries is something that we all know, and we were categorized as emerging country in BRICS. Suddenly the narrative has started changing towards large economy now that we are in 5th place. Okay. In recent times, the economy's growth is not only should not only be looked at in $1 billion of changes, but also in the sense of what really those $1 billion are. So in 2016, the economy added the value which is equal to the economy of Pakistan. And next year, it is Sweden got it. And thereafter, Chile and Estonia, and 2020, we had Corona got it. So that's why there's nothing there. 2021, we added a Netherlands economy in our economy. I think that's a big thing. These are big countries. These are significant economic value that are getting added up every year. And I think when we look at numbers and we say 6.8% and $3.4 trillion economy, sometimes we do miss out on this kind of understanding. So I thought when I looked at it, I felt it is quite amazing how things are happening. Now, that is about where we have reached. These 2 slides are about what do we expect to do and achieve in next, let's say, give or take 5 to 7 years. So, it's been talked a lot. We are expected to be the 3rd largest economy by 2029 sometime. The economy is likely to reach about 7.5 trillion by 2031. The next line, which is linked to the previous slide, we would be adding $400 billion of economic value every year. And that's a huge value. That's a huge number. And we will be only 3rd country to be able to do so as we proceed from here till next 5, 6, 7 years. Okay. And the big story would be around consumption. There will be about 140 million people who will get added in the middle income and about 21 million in higher income that will come. And these people, along with the existing ones, are going to be really the consumption driver and hence the economic driver as we move forward. Again, the expectations are that this transition and this change is going to be, this growth is going to be partially led by manufacturing, wherein which the contribution will move from current 15.6% to about 21%, and exports are likely to double. So people, and I was talking to Mr. Mihir, and he's exporting. So once his company comes into stock market, that's the company that we should be targeting. So exports are going to be a big one. So in summary, the economic growth of next few years is going to be based on consumption, manufacturing, and MSMEs are going to be a very important role because this is the country where MSME contributes a significant large portion of it. Productivity growth, which is where the labor-related initiatives are going to be important one. And the fiscal prudence. These 5 things put together is what would define the India in next, let's say, give or take a decade. This is what probably would be the India-centric growth model, because this is slightly different from the conventional growth models that we come across and see in developing countries. that we have seen so far. So this is the growth model that perhaps is going to lead the way of this country over next 1 decade. Okay. Now, keeping this in the context, the important thing is what are we getting there? What are the current challenges? And how is this budget kind of making us reach closer or far away from the so-called India-centric model? So the, these two slides are about what's the reality, what's happening in the global space which is influencing India in context to economy. So there are challenges, and obviously there are a number of challenges, and they are significant because not all of them are something which can be controlled. So there is a demand problem. The World Bank and IMF have been revising the global economic growth downwards continuously. It's just the last time that they have revised to 2.9 now, 2.9%. So global economic growth is going to be a challenge that we are going to face quite significantly as in this particular year. We all have heard about inflation and it being a little higher than what is the comfort zone for RBI and for the country, and that has a significant bearing on us. Because of inflation, the global financial global financial systems and central banks have actually gone ahead and tightened the monetary supplies, and which is going to be a significant challenge, can be a significant challenge for Indian markets in attracting the capital for our development, which is quite important. So the liquidity issues can emerge. Pandemic has seen, and as Swati has talked about, the fiscal deficits, the earnings, and the expenditures. All of that has battered the the public finances quite significantly. Likewise, there are challenges around SDG achievement and the labor force participations. So, while these are the things which perhaps need to be looked upon more urgently and to be addressed in this budget, or to be addressed in this budget, and we will see whether it did. There are positives as well, and I think that's where the merrymaking between the long-term prospects and the current reality actually takes place. The China plus one, which is the world is now looking at, kind of offers a significant opportunity. Much closer at home, GST collection and the consumer demand, particularly the affluent sections demand, is being superbly strong. We have been clocking higher collecting GST collections month after month. The next point is actually an important one. The demand has reached to a point where the capacity utilization of the private sectors are now requiring additional capital investments. So the conventional and the classical theory says that if you have investment coming in from private sector because they want to cater to an enhanced demand, that's where the economy starts to grow in a swift manner. And I think that's the spot that we have kind of reached. We have talked, many people have talked about the capacity utilization led expansions that are likely to happen. And last point is equally important, which is in the midst of all this, the financial stage, the financial health of banks, particularly measured by way of NPAs, has improved quite dramatically. From as high as 9% NPAs, now we are the recent numbers looks more like 5%, and then Kumji would perhaps be would be more happy in sharing some of the other details about it. But that's again a very important thing from a point of what is enabling us in subsequent period, and is the budget kind of looking at leveraging some of these positives. So I said there are two types of analysis that we are looking at. One is the short term that we talked about. It's a balance between what has been done, what has not been done. But the deeper analysis talks about a little more details. And what I could figure out, this is what my assessment of the budget speech the corresponding memorandums and all the other details that I could lay my hands gives me that there are certain things that are happening. There are certain things that how can we look at this in a slightly more structured manner? So, the budget has about 5 broad themes, and I'm not talking about the 7 priorities that the finance minister talked about. These are the underlying things which the budget is trying to achieve, and this is my perception about the budget. So first out of that is a strong emphasis on innovation. So whether it is the agriculture stack, where again Nirmamji will perhaps be detailing and dwelling a little more, NABARD being the key frontier on that side, and the accelerator fund, which is towards modernizing agricultural practices. That's been a big focus. There are other things, the 5G and the AI center, the emerging technologies, manpower being trained on emerging technologies. These are again targeting what is likely to become big in as we go forward. Fourth point, I think, is third and fourth point are equally important and big, which is around government making an explicit statement about data governance policy, which actually enables a lot of startup related activities. So there are social enterprises which perhaps require far more information, which with the data governance policy might actually be finally enabled, and hence that's a step in harnessing innovation. So in this particular theme, I think the government is trying to put focus towards higher value added areas and sectors. And I think that is one picture which is emerging in the next one. The second one, I think, is quite very much covered by all the experts who appeared on the news channels, on different media channels, which is about the capex. So there are different numbers. So 3.3% of the GDP to be invested in capital expenditure in this year is by far a very significant step. And along with that, Satyaji talked about the state loans, 50-year state loans, for which Madhya Pradesh has been a beneficiary to some extent, to a large extent. That's been extended from 1 lakh crore to 1,80,000 crore. Again, is a very important step. Urban infrastructure, railways, transportation, all of this, these sectors being addressed by way of capital expenditure is something where the government perhaps is suggesting that it's the investment for future. Different economists actually look at capital expenditure differently, and they put a multiplier effect on capital expenditure, anything between 2.5 to, let's say, 4.5. What it means is that when you invest $1 in capital expenditure, the impact of that dollar over a period of time is anything between 2.5 to 4.5 dollars, and that's what the multiplier effect that the government is expecting to reap over a period of time. So the second story is broadly around capital expenditure. So and the multiplier effect that the government is hoping to get. The third one, I think, and this is something which I think, to my mind, is actually a very big one. It's a very big move and a bold move that the government has put up. It is about greening the economy. Now let's put this in context. First, let's see what are the things that have been done. So energy transition program. Now this is something for which 35,000 odd crores have been allocated in terms of making our energies much more greener compared to what it is currently. There is a program that's been put up on 10 gigawatt plant to be put up in Leh, because that's the place where the solar radiation is most favorable. And converting that and linking it to grid supplies, I think is a massive step forward, not only in case of uh, uh, India, but also pretty much like that. This is pretty much like one of its kind of program in the entire world so far. So beyond China, there is not any other country, and we are saying beyond China because we do not know China. There is no country who has put up such um, loud and bold step forward to do these kind of transition. So hydrogen green credit program and green credit to my mind is again going to be significant big program as we move forward. Um, and the duty reduction, custom duty reduction in EV industry are some of the things. Now, all of this is equally important to be understood that somewhere at the back of the mind, probably the government also wanted to do some bit of messaging, considering the G20 presidency, considering that we are now at a forum where we are kind of representing a leadership position in developing countries. This is these initiatives are superbly important for the economy, but at the same time, they are also demonstrating the global leadership on climate related aspects. And I think that is something which has been emphasized significantly in this particular budget. Okay. Next one. The fourth one is around simplifying life. There are a number of things, and I was talking to Anilji about the number of provisions that have been proposed to be changed. There are quite a lot. They may not have been developed in the budget speech per se, but they still are a lot. So tax structure, which is a headline today of all the newspapers, of course, rationalization of it is something which will be which is known. But the other things are going to be a lot of they are going to be very important in due course of time. PAN becoming a unique business identifier. You talk to any industry, you talk to any MSME, you talk to even people, professionals, and they would tell that how difficult it is to kind of keep giving same information to different agencies again and again and again. And how do we kind of get the benefit of all of that coming into DigiLocker and the DigiLocker services getting expanded. I think point number 3 is equally important about the government deciding to relook at 42 simple rules and laws. I think we will see how it transitions for a period of time, how it swings out. And the last one, which is around the consultation, this is something which perhaps need a little well. The financial regulators today are not bounded by any opinion, right? They can make their own act, their own rules and regulations, and that becomes the order of the day. For the first time, that now they are also being brought under the purview of getting public consultations. They are advised, the word is used, advised to do a public consultation of whatever they are proposing. And I think that's a very important thing because many a times there are opinions about the way financial rules and regulations gets launched in this country. So again, a very positive step forward. The last of the themes, to my mind, was around employment centricity. Now, this may actually surprise some of us because it didn't come in that manner. The way we are looking at the theme, probably it didn't come this way in the budget. It was not stated in that. So the revamped credit guarantee, the role of MSME is being recognized in the budget. That to be launched on 1st of April. A number of steps around tourism and tourism centric approaches, which is again manpower centric. the manufacturing cooperatives and how it is to be looked at, how it is going to be looked transition from consuming cooperatives and kind of thrift kind of setups to more manufacturing oriented ones. The 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 skills program, and this is something which I was quite pleasantly surprised to look at in this very institute at some point of time in past about 3 4 years back. We did some pilot work in which the idea was, can Madhya Pradesh be a place from where the labor can be sent across and be enabled for the world, and we did some work on that. And here it is, yesterday it was announced that 30 Skill India international centers would be launched, and they would be perhaps looking and catering to the labor requirements of the world. So that on the basis of our own experience, we feel is going to be something can be scaled up and be something very significant, and also is a training requirement at a global scale. So these 5 things, these 5 themes put together offers a glimpse of about a large number of things that are being announced. And if you look back, now related back to what we started off, what is the position that India is going to lead at? The position of MSMEs and MSME-led growth, the position of innovation-led growth, the position of consumption-led growth, and financial prudence. I think that's what was talked about in our India-centric model, and I think that's where we have reached. So these 5 themes is kind of indicating the requirements of what we need to do over the period of next decade to be able to reach to the 3rd largest economy, and to be able to reach, let's say, give or take $7.5 trillion by 2031. So there are certain things which these announcement is resulting in. What it looks like is it is sticking to the basics of not trying to pedal and push growth too much, because the global environment is turbulent, and that is something which is coming out. Second is the government is now saying that it will get into the ecosystem development of many steps that are being talked about, that have initiated, and there will be a dependency on the market forces, which is the industry and other stakeholders, to take it forward. And I think that's the way it should be. And of course, the messaging of global leadership is again something which is being talked about. So I think this is my analysis of what really out of the budget analysis yesterday. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I would like to invite our second speaker for the session, Mr. Nirupam Mehrotra, CGM, NABARD MP. Mr. Nirupam Mehrotra has over 20 years of experience in NABARD, primarily in the main branch of Mumbai and various regional offices. During his career, he has been involved in both policy framing and implementation. He actively participated in the deliberations of the expert group on agriculture indebtedness and assisted in drafting of the final report, where the expert group was constituted by the Ministry of Finance, Government of India, and headed by Professor Radhakrishnan. He has recently been a part of task force on credit-related issues of farmers, constituted by the Ministry of Agriculture. Mr. Mehrotra will be discussing on infrastructure and its financing related to the budget. Over to you.
सबसे पहले तो मैं धन्यवाद दूंगा प्लानिंग कमीशन मध्य प्रदेश एज वेल एज AIGGPA को, जिनने मेरे को मौका दिया कि इधर आके आपके साथ अपने विचार को साझा करूं। विषय है देखो ये भी बोला गया है जैसा शेयर मैडम ने बताया कि इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर एंड इट्स फाइनेंसिंग के ऊपर जो है आप अपना फोकस रखें और कल जब से प्रोजेक्ट आया इनफैक्ट आजकल इतना इंफॉर्मेशन ओवरलोड है कि by that time a person finishes the sentence, I think it is out in the small type. And by the time you really want to say something, you realize that others have already. So it becomes very, very challenging. मैं जब आ रहा था तो मैं सोच रहा था कि मैं क्या बोलूँगा तो क्योंकि from yesterday and same thing and you also are part of that same value आप भी टीवी देखते हैं आप भी वो देखते हैं मैंने लेकिन obviously everybody here must have also seen the same very number in fact I am hostage to the same syndrome कि मैंने को जो बोलना था already स्वतंत्र जी और राहुल जी ने बहुत किया तो उन्हें जो है हेमंत जी को मेरे बात होते but not and जैसा but both of them are industry experts and they know the numbers so well कि they will bring really lot of value addition to this but nevertheless let me make an attempt as they say कि कोशिश करनी चाहिए and so for me I think from NABARD's perspective and from an individual's perspective when I look as a citizen of this country I must say that I think this budget is as the Honorable Finance Minister said the first budget in America so वाकई अमृतकाल का पहला बजट और इसने ऐसी नींव रखी है कि निश्चित तौर पे उसकी ओर प्रगति क्योंकि इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर के ऊपर बात करने के लिए बुला गया है और अगर मैं बजट को सिर्फ बजट के पर्सपेक्टिव से ना देखूं नंबर्स की बात करने में थोड़ा सा लेकिन if you look at it as a little elongated perspective and if you go through the economic survey and the previous economic surveys, you will find this budget was in making for the last 3, 4, 5 years. It may have come to them. Infrastructure की जो context है, कुछ context definitely राहुल जी ने बताया कि why it is important, why this capital is capex is important. Just to reiterate the facts, capital expenditure or capex or infrastructure की जो धारणा थी और अब धारणा थी, उसमें ये definitely था कि it will lead to income generation. That is why capital expenditure and that income generation, as we know, leads to actually to the last mile person also gets elongated. The first mile also it has a multiplier effect. Camera multiplier effect का राहुल जी ने बताया 2.5 to 4.5 depending on what economists come up with. But we also had done in NABARD some work on this, especially with agri and not only NABARD but even celebrated economists like Professor Gulati and others. तो कौन सा इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर लगाने से कितना ज्यादा फायदा होता है रूरल एरिया इस पे काफी स्टडीज हैं चाहे इरिगेशन लगाओ चाहे रूरल रोड्स लगाओ एंड कि पर यूनिट ₹1 डालें तो कितना आता है राहुल जी ने बताया 2.5 to 4.5 सो नॉट ओनली इनकम ही बढ़ती है दूसरा एक और आंकड़ा निकला है कि द मैक्सिमम नंबर ऑफ पुअर दैट यू कैन टेक आउट अबव द पॉवर्टी लाइन इज थ्रू रूरल एरिया and within that agri infrastructure. In the last 4 or 5 years, the term infrastructure has also मेरे हिसाब से changed. A new dimension has been added to the word infrastructure. We don't only talk about now physical infrastructure, we talk about digital infrastructure. In fact, I don't know मतलब कि Oxford में ये word आया है कि नहीं डिक्शनरी में, but now people or rather everybody talks about the 5 physical digital
fight digital, and which is essentially कोविड ने राहुल जी ने अपने प्रेजेंटेशन में बताया कि वहाँ कुछ नहीं है, जो नंबर के तौर पे कुछ ना हो, लेकिन उसमें ये जरूर दिखा दिया है कि आपको डिजिटल इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर से आप लोगों को तरीके से a solution in which you don't have to meet people, but it can make you eat your food on your table. That was possible because of the Chandhan and that whole digital infrastructure that was created, in which amounts were transferred directly and they were also linked to the food grains and other things. How businesses also started using the digital infrastructure, not only payment system, UPI story for UPI that everybody knows in the test. That is basically very we take it for granted. The West has not been able to, or the so-called developed nations have not been able to come up the way UPI has come up in India. They are looking for India to show them. So you can imagine what is the impact of digital infrastructure. I think by 2025, the $1 trillion का जो है digital economy का जो लक्ष्य है उसमें, and that is why I think this budget is really इसको समावेश कर दिया है physical and digital. एक और हिस्सा budget के analysis पे होता है ज्यादातर. So that is my first point. We look at the budget from the infrastructure side, digital side, and the complementarities that it will bring among it. There are lots of it. Second is this private versus public investment. The capex which is being told about is around 10 lakh crore ka jisko all-time high. But the budget also mentions about something called the effective capital expenditure. That is something like the capex plus the grants in aid that will go into capital investment. So it is a grant, but it will in aid to the state, but will go. And that, if you add that, it is around 13.7 lakh crore, which is around 4.5%. You can have it used by then. Means I just have to quickly sort of so the private public investment combination will work because there are so many. I think Machanji will take it over when it comes to MSME and other places. जो ecosystem है, so that the private investment starts, and as hint of it was given by Rahul Chaudhary and since in their presentations is that now the capacity utilization is actually wanting private investment to come in at a large rate. I come to the headwinds. So, just to roll it out, and while doing so, I will try to connect it to the Madhya Pradesh, Hamara jo rajya hai, how it is best positioned, or rather is already taking advantage of this thing. I think one of the important things which were said there about the rail, almost all-time high will come. And as we know, Madhya Pradesh is a landlocked state, and I think in the GIS, I heard that figure from Professor Chaturvedi, around 435 trains crisscrossing through the state on a daily basis. So the railway infrastructure is very important, and if investment comes into it, I think state like Madhya Pradesh is going to benefit the most. Because in the world, around the logistic and multimodal cost, the logistic cost, around in the world average is around 8%, whereas in India it is around 16%, and it may be a little higher than the average in the case of. So, and logistic cost, as you know, is something which really any businessman, any place will tell you is also a major cost when it comes to stopping for business or transporting. So how much of each business can get, but it is a major cost. So there is some distance to go when you want to reduce your logistic cost, and that type of these things that will happen. So that is one. Second is that this 50-year 1.3 lakh crore interest-free loan already Pankaj told us NVDA, they have been a beneficiary. And I think the only caveat is that you have to use it in 23, 24, 1 year period. And I think we from NABARD also, we work very closely with NVDA and a lot of the irrigation projects and other projects. We are very much aware in the state is positioned to use it. They have on-shelf projects in which they can use it in one. One of the really miracle stories of not only India but of our state is that the time it is taking for projects to turn around has drastically reduced. An irrigation project, of a pipe irrigation project, it used to take such a long time, but I know that now in 2.5 years, the project is almost 80-90% complete, and in fact, for the administrative reason, but otherwise the funds are. So that is what, and these are the projects, it may like you are talking about 2,000 crore, 2,500 crore. So what is it? This much of capacity to absorb the capex also needs to be increased, and that has started. Already there is a lot of improvement in that in states like Madhya Pradesh and maybe other states. So this is very well positioned to use that capex. So that said, I'm sure another thing is that already we told about those things. I think RIDF, as you all know, Rural Infrastructure Development Fund is the priority sector for उसके through जो है करीब 50,000 crore का investment for the last year's purpose was there. Madhya Pradesh has almost doubled, around 3,500 crore, 3,000 crore, and it takes and it's a concessional matter. On similar lines, the UIDF has been done from the priority sectors. कहने को you can say कि it's a shortfall, but then I have always taken this stance. RIDF or innovation, and when I say how do you finance infrastructure, this is one way of financing. I think the standard textbook will say कि debt से financing होगा, equity से होगा, a combination of two, and maybe there are public-private partnerships. Those are modes, but ultimately, if you look at the big picture, that was when we say priority sector shortfall means that was an investment that was supposed to go from your left hand to one sector, and in this case it was agriculture and life. And suppose it does not go, then what happens? And this was that is why see it was supposed to go to the priority sectors, but for some reason or it didn't go through the bank route. So it was transformed into a fund, which is the priority sector shortfall fund, and you give that investment or that dose a second chance to reach that same target group, but in a public investment form, and that's what is the RIDF for. So it is, these are the innovations that have always happened, but it has not been positioned. So I think UIDF that way is a very good if shortfalls are there, which can be used. There are other funds also this thing which is there. Already I think coming here, I can also say it is not only about 13.7 or 10 lakh crore capex. It is also about the private investment which is happening. And one of the biggest private investments that in the agricultural sector or in the rural sector basically is happening is through the AIF now, the Agri Infrastructure Fund, which is a 1 lakh crore fund. It was announced with this thing, and it gives an infrastructure. There is road, railway, roads. These are physical infrastructure that is which Rahulji told about agri-state and a public infrastructure in digital form, जिसमें open how do you use that information? How do you use that information? Simple तरीका ये है, it is no more a figment of imagination. All those Jharkhand accounts were basically Aadhaar stacked, Aadhaar seated, and that is why you could reach the Nirpam Merudra if I was a beneficiary on a click of a link. So that's the power of an agri state, open house, digital, data governed physical infrastructure. That's the critical link, according to me, which was missing in the Indian ecosystem for so long, of the linking the real sector with the physical and the digital, and to make sure that this becomes the engine of growth. That's the agri infrastructure fund most suited. Lot of work Madhya Pradesh ranks, I think, has got awards also in the area. Largely warehousing and storage infrastructure. But now this fund is being used, we are seeing in about into areas in which the state has done so phenomenally well, is that to translate this agri and horti production into sort of value addition in terms of storage and in terms of processing, and there are now institutions also which are like storage at the grassroots level की बात की है, तो उसमें जो है cooperatives के through जो है banks के through जो computerization की बात है, it is not only just mere computerization. Now it is an enterprise. Banks can become not only lending institution, but they can add, because of that enterprise solution, additional businesses, and there is a storage capacity and the farm produce which through cooperatives with the budget talks. So it can no more be in the lending business only, they can do other businesses apart from PDS also and become a business. So this is that infrastructure which we think is, I would call it micro infrastructure at the grassroots, which is important, which is actually incredible, which does not require too much of gestation period. Today, we know that tax program can be made in 1 month. We have seen it. There is a Lateri tax, and so quickly you have 3,000 metric ton in 10 minutes, provided for tenancy. So this will get big, and again that's suited for this thing that's like Madhya Pradesh. Now there is an agri credit के बारे में बोला गया है. Agri credit should not be only seen as an agri credit, because there is a term loan component in this 20 lakh, which goes again through the bank. In Madhya Pradesh, banks have done well on the term loan component compared. So term loans are basically again for investment at the farm level. So that is being taken by the entrepreneurs. So that is another investment tool. Because by saying so, I am trying to sort of touch around key financing tasks in terms of without getting into the numbers. But these are the different tools, and one should be open to at least have an understanding. Yes, these are the rules through which the ecosystem is getting a lot of channels. Now, what is the demand for such type of credit? Recently, we were looking at the numbers. So gross value of output you have in agri and allied. Secretary is here. You know the numbers much better. Is that we saw कि in gross value of output का जो growth है not 1-2 साल 2011-12 से लेके 2019-20, and these numbers are again from the Madhya Pradesh Planning Commission report. The garlic 37% growth in GBO in rupee terms. In physical production also uska growth बहुत है. Oranges 20% growth in rupee terms, in value terms over a period of 2011 to 1920. That's the latest data. That's over 10. So value terms may be very, and physical production term may be around 20% growth in orange. potatoes. These are apart from ये आपका wheat and paddy, obviously इसमें भी growth है, GPU and production. But these other sectors are basically in need of storage, logistics. Garlic का processing ही करेंगे. Oranges को आप या तो table variety या process ही करेंगे. Potato का आप क्या करेंगे? मतलब production needs to translate. So how do you translate? These are the rules. Yeah. Make projects and who will now do it? I think best position is that individuals apart, the FQs and the bags are best suited. And that is where I think the next way he was saying is that how do you decentralize the infrastructure requirements at the grassroots level? And these are the micro infrastructure, if I may use that term, which will help moving forward. All of that is there in the bucket in some form or the other. Agri stack, 5 digital. टैक्स कंप्यूटराइजेशन की बात कर ली. दो चीजें और मैं बोलना चाहूंगा इसमें कि एक the honorable FM has told about taking the SHGs to the next level of producer collectives. There are already कई ऐसे examples हैं already where SHGs have gone into a enterprise level. But now I think with this focus, our state best focus कि उसको उस level पे कैसे लेके जाए, and that level पे ले जाने के लिए again you would require an investment that will come through either the bank route and supported in some manner by the government and the banks is that infrastructure requirement. We in NABARD have seen lot of such innovations where now through the NRLM here common facility center है, training area है, there is a जितने भी uniform बन रहे हैं बच्चों के districts and other are being done by the में जो है उनको ट्रेनिंग दिया जाता है and they are best of the standards and अब जो है it's no more the old usha सिलाई machine which is which I remember my mother also used to do in a home kit. These are all high-tech machines. इसमें assembly line of machine भी है, बटन लगाने वाली अलग है. इसके बाद you know better. So these are the types of investment which actually can catapult and put that thought and that collectives में कैसे. So that's again the this thing. Of 7.5 trillion economy, and the concern that was raised in some hierarchy, income inequality. If you go to these routes, the income inequality automatically gets sort of. It is for some economists to find out how it has come. But the fact is, the narrative is very clear. We sort out and it is actually income equality or yeah. Two more things. ONDC is another digital infrastructure that is wanting for is waiting for export. Open network for digital commerce. It is again an open network. All the FPOs, all the SMGs can be onboarded in ONDC. They can then get the market that is required. From NABARD, we have started in our own way, try to hold it on the SMGs and this on this platform. So I'm sure this will happen. So it is again another that why we talk about finance. So these are some of the things. Accelerator, agri startup is again fitting there. Maybe some other time that the agri startup thing is actually to be seen from a little different perspective. It is for a state like Madhya Pradesh. Actually, this is इसको कहते हैं ना कि is best suited because agriculture is doing so well here, but entrepreneurship अगर उसके साथ जोड़ दिया, and this is the entrepreneurship which is from the rural entrepreneurship which are and it is there. NABARD has a agri business incubation center in collaboration with the Gwalior Agri University. We have done. The state has a startup policy. Lot of, now the point is only to make sure कि Bhopal and Indore belt cities decentralized हो जाए, and that's how I think this another gives an opportunity. ONDC Unity Mall, OD, OB, and this is so. Maybe I first thought कि क्या बोलूँगा, लेकिन I think there are so many things on which excites you, and really I should give it a stop. I have over shooted my allotted time, but sorry if I have been very repetitive, but thank you for giving me this. Thank you.
The third speaker for the session is Mr. Mihir Martin, Chairman CIA Bhopal and Joint CEO Pyramid Palace Private Limited. Mr. Mihir Martin has done his degree in Mechanical Engineering from Manipal Institute of Technology and MBA from PIMR Indore. He has also various certifications which include Productivity Enhancement by IT from Tokyo, Japan, Technology Entrepreneurship Lab to Market from Harvard University, and many more. He has worked in various companies like PAL Project Network 2009. Currently, he is the joint CEO of Pyramid Palace Private Limited. He is involved in various organizations such as CII, Young Indian, and IEGGPA. He has also received Outstanding Alumnus Award in 2015 by PIMR Indore. Mr. Mihir Martin will be discussing about the impact on industry and MSME trends for the state related to the budget. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much for the kind introduction. Good afternoon, this is Kumar Singh, Ram Chavali, Samit Jain, Dr. Swati, and everybody else in this room. So I'm going through the same syndrome that Mr. Nikom mentioned, that a lot of things have already been covered, and so what I thought is that we do it in a slightly different way, because I mean, again, one of the things that Mr. Rahul and I were discussing before we came here, that when budgets are presented, there are a lot of things which are there on the page, but then the facts and figures come out. So I don't really have too many figures to be mentioned out here. But what I will do is, on behalf of, I think as CIA, primarily here as a representative of Confederation of Indian Industry, I'll try and put in an industry perspective to various things, and specifically relating more to the industry side of things, and maybe also try and add a bit of it to, how it could be helpful for Madhya Pradesh in general. So let's see, I'll probably try and look on that. So one of the things, one of the trends that has actually been there for last many years is that budget is no more the one and only statement for the year. It's more like a visioning exercise. And if you have seen over the last few years, whatever budgets that I've been sort of a part of those analysis sessions and stuff, that it's been more like a long-term plan, and then over the year we find a lot of sub-meetings going on. They become more prominent after the DSP Council has come in, and a lot of these sub areas have been formed. That there are reforms are actually now more of a continual exercise rather than a one-off thing that comes on a budget announcement day and that stays for the year. So, again, possibly, I think one of the salient features which was also added, but maybe I would like to add, sort of repeat it, is that one of the very important points which we are all aware of, that India is currently expected to grow at around 7%, which is the highest amongst most significant economies of the world. We don't consider very small economies. So, which is definitely says a lot about where our economy is headed. And Mr. Rahul also showed in his presentation how our economy has grown over the last many years, and where we have superseded, many of the mature economies which have sort of stayed at similar levels, but we have been growing. And it's a well-known fact that we are targeting to be the third largest, currently the fifth largest economy. And obviously, this journey from fifth to third is not going to be. It's not like just doing it across, because here we are talking big numbers. From fifth to third also is something that our economy will have to make significant progress to reach that level. So we have already reached a threshold, but the next threshold is going to definitely be a tough one. So maybe coming to specifics, again, maybe I'm repeating a lot of things. So we were talking, so Nilpa mentioned extensively about the agriculture. So which is where our state comes in, like Madhya Pradesh being a major agricultural state. And there were 3 or 4 main areas apart from general reformist measures that were mentioned. I think some of the 2, 3 things that stood out, which again was the last point that you mentioned on the agricultural accelerator fund. So that I think is a very substantial opportunity for Madhya Pradesh in particular. And all the more because I do remember the finance minister mentioning somewhere that they would be encouraging entrepreneurship specifically from rural areas. So which is again adding to what you already said that it would go beyond the Bhopal Indore conventional hub and more into the heartlands, and which is again some place where we can definitely cash it, considering that MP is one of the largest agricultural producers. And again, to add to it, where the industry perspective would come in is that a good number of industries, at all scales. And again, I'm not talking big MSME or micro, small, medium, even large enterprises in MP are agri-based. So we have all kinds of the largest producers here to the smallest guys who are doing some sub work, and you have mills and you have. So I feel this is so not just considering about startups here, but I'm saying in general, all the impetus that is being given on agriculture will possibly help the industry across all sectors. We have to look at it across the board. If I have to specifically talk again, there were 2, 3 salient points which were mentioned, and we are all aware this is the global year for millet, and I do know of industries who are in Madhya Pradesh, who are working on millet, and they seem to have got a good advantage out of this. So that can definitely be. And then apart from this, as a part of what was coined as the Shri Ann, number of different grains also were identified. So possibly that could help. Again, a number of different industries working on different, with different food products to utilize on this. Another important point I felt was there was also a very important thing that was mentioned on increasing and also streamlining the storage infrastructure for the grains and fishes. So, which is because there has always been this that okay, you're producing, but then you're not getting consumed, and there is always that storage issue of how much of it really reaches the end consumer. So, by adding this to the infrastructure, so this again provides a business opportunity also for people who want to get into the storage side of things, as well as ensures that we are not the produce is not getting wasted. So, which was one. Another area, if I have to specifically talk on the MSME side, there was this reference on 39, which is primarily as an extension of the ODB, that ease of doing business part of the government, where there was a talk on 39,000 rules which will be relaxed or which are really redundant, as well as 3,400 decriminalization of 3,000 or 5,000. So 5,400 laws which are going to be decriminalized. So which is something which could definitely encourage not just new entrepreneurs, but more predominantly I would say micro, small sectors even more, because typically in these kind of sectors, you have, it's not a very, you have a very lean structure, you have a single person who's doing multiple roles, and maybe, not by intent, I would say sometimes they miss out on certain, maybe certain rules, and there's always that little there. It's always a thing that, okay, what if they get into trouble? So by doing this, it's sort of an encouraging move that, okay. So, which I feel, then another thing which also was covered by Mr. Rahul was on the credit guarantee scheme where, I think it's, there is going to be substantial changes in the credit guarantee scheme. Also, one of the other things that there is going to be an infusion of 9,000 crore in this. So that is again a very encouraging step towards MSMEs. One of the other points which was also mentioned, not sure, it will definitely help in some way is that, if there are some government contracts, people who were affected during the COVID days, So their bank guarantees usually used to get confiscated. So that also was assured that 95% of the bank guarantee or any kind of financial implications that would have happened due to this, they basically due to non-execution or late execution of any such orders, or that would be returned back to the MSMEs, which again is an encouraging step, primarily for people who may have gone through this kind of a situation, and maybe there have been situations where industries have actually gone under or gone, are not able to function because of the financial burden. So it will probably be a step to help them revive their industries. So on the whole, on the MSME side of things, one thing it was very clear that the government in its long-term vision is trying to encourage innovation and entrepreneurship and trying to get more industry friendly. One of the very big opportunities here also was again something that is being discussed very extensively since yesterday, is on the infrastructure investment, which is likely to be increased by almost 33%. So where it would help is, though I do have some data which has come through some government document, where there has been specifics on the sectors where this infusion of 10,000 crores is likely to go. If you want, maybe I can just read it out. That a good amount of it is going to be in the defense, which is going to be to the tune of 5.94 crores. There is going to be an allocation of almost 2.7 crores towards road transport and highways. Railways, again, I'll come to that later, but 2.54 lakh crores, which we all heard. Similarly, Ministry of Chemicals and Fertilizers have 1.78, rural development 1.6, communications 1.23. So that way, what I would like to cover is any kind of infusion in capex is going to be helpful across the entire scale. It will help the large industries, it will also help the small industries who are suppliers to the large industries. So it is definitely very welcome move. And if I again need to go to the specifics, if we again go to what was mentioned in the budget on 2.5 lakh crores for railways, it is definitely a very big push, and railways has a very strong base. Again, you just mentioned about how railways are significant to MP also. And what I could also add here is, maybe taking off from last year's budget, what we have been seeing across the year, there's been a lot of important impetus on the Gati Shakti Yojana, which is on multimodal transport. So where railways are likely to be, railways so far we have always had the perception of being bought for the passengers, but the opportunities that lie in freight and goods transportation is way higher, and which is where there will be again opportunities which could go down the line, which would come with container, which would come with depots, which would come with logistics, which would one more point I would like to add here is like Bhopal, we predominantly know sort of industry environment grew around the electrical industry, starting with BHL, and then people like the larger pillar companies like Crompton Greaves or Anchorage, and then we had so Bhopal is actually a very strong vendor base for the Indian Railways, considering that we have a lot of industries who are already working with the railways, who are already working on railway infrastructure. So in a way, I personally feel any kind of development on the railway side is going to be a beneficial thing. I could be very specific, not just MP, but even specifically for industries of Bhopal and but how it comes in is to be seen. Again, there is a fine print because it wasn't mentioned. 2-3 years back, there was a lot of push on metros and on the UH trains. Prior to that, there was a lot of push on electrification side of things. So where exactly the 2.54 lakh crores are to be allocated, the railways has come up with some kind of a broad vision 2 weeks back. So, but in a way, I feel directly or indirectly, it is going to help us for sure. Another factor, again, we have to talk on green economy. This is something again which has been priority sector for the government. We already know that there is a lot of push on EV. So which again we saw when custom duties were reduced for battery components, which again is a move in the same direction. Which again, but we also saw some very grassroots initiatives like the Government initiative, where we are looking at energy bio sources, which is again something which I feel would help considering the rural infrastructure within our state also. And also, about the collection points is also in a way indirectly encouraging innovations. We also saw, so again, on the green economy side of things, there are definitely, again, MP is a very strong state when it comes to solar energy, etc. So all the, the continuing initiatives as well as, on the EV side of things would help probably. One of the other significant things we saw was a reduction in import duty on some specialty chemicals, which also was a welcome move for the industry. And there was a more specific emphasis on camera component lenses as well as mobile components, which also possibly highlights, I would say more like, again, I would say the umbrella for the whole thing is, make in India. And probably government wishes to encourage making more and more mobile phones in India and reducing imports from, it. So, if I may not have to go into the specific names there. So which possibly could be, I mean, it's again more of a personal view. I feel that's probably the logic behind the initiatives. We want to encourage, and we have seen that with major manufacturers like Samsung and now Apple setting up large manufacturing base in India. So we're probably going by the China plus one or alternative to China as a major manufacturing for these kind of products. One major thing that also stood out in yesterday's budget was on tourism. As we know that it was probably the sector which was most affected in India prior to due to COVID and others, where people. But what it probably did was encourage a lot of Indians to travel within the country, which also added to the push. So we saw that there were a number of announcements such as Dekho Apna Desh as well as focus for foreign tourists, where things were mentioned that there would be 50 priority destinations with a lot of efforts being given on the security, connectivity, which again would come to the infra side of things. And where I see an opportunity like anywhere else, anything amongst the 50 priority destinations, I'm sure what Madhya Pradesh is, I'm sure we will have a few of these. So this again could be a very good opportunity across the chain, starting from, you go down to up or up to down, like say from the hotels to, like as they mentioned, for specifically training for guides and etc. So it's something that goes across the entire value chain. And again, this point was mentioned, it's not directly, I would say, linked to, I mean, Rahul gives a very good example of what ChatGPT can do, but there was also this talk of setting up AI center with one of the IITs. There was also a mention of setting up teacher training institutes as well as a lot of skilling institutes where a specific emphasis was given on nursing colleges, but then also I would say that all the budget allocations would seep down to skilling of manpower, which indirectly, or I should say not even indirectly, directly would help the industry because we are always on lookout for skilled people and always for new avenues, plus encouraging entrepreneurship in these areas. So these are some of the points that I would like to mention. Again, and I would end by saying that in everything there was a big talk. I mean, I would say most of it was that everything the focus would be on PPP model, which is public-private partnerships. So where I think this is also a welcome step where we are seeing involvement of the government and industry together. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The fourth speaker for the session is Mr. Amit Jain, Chartered Accountant. Mr. Amit Jain is a highly qualified professional with BCom, LLB, FCA, DISA and IFRS certification from the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. He has been practicing as a partner in Lesser BPG, Jain and Company in Bhopal since 1997, focusing on direct taxes, indirect taxes, and audits. He has been nominated as a co-opted member in the Direct Tax Committee of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India for the financial year 2017-18. Mr. Jain will be discussing about the tax structure and the changes in the budget. Yes, please.
Will be comfortable standing here and delivering. Respected dignitaries on the dais, ladies and gentlemen present here, a very warm good afternoon, in fact, to one and all. It's a pleasure and honor to be here and share my presentation on the changes in the tax structure proposed in the Union Budget 2023-24. Now the task given to me has two challenges. First, I'm speaking in the last, so I have to ensure the concentration level is kept. And second is speaking on the proposals will have two difficulties in the sense that, as Rahulji said, there are 42 changes, proposals, in fact, amendments proposed. So most of the part are technical. So I have to ensure that the technicalities and the layman concepts are being matched. Now, coming to the topic, changes in the tax structure proposed. You know, when a budget is, budget is studied and viewed, different users are there. If you see, major users are common individuals. When you see how is the budget? From yesterday we are having so many talks. How is the budget? What is the benefit I'm given? Now you see from the individual perspective, the focus is on what is the benefit I have got in income tax. But if you see from a country's perspective, a good budget is one which makes a balance between for the overall country's growth. That is a good budget. And fortunately, in last 5 to 10 years, which we have seen, this budget looks to be a very good budget. Good budget in the sense that it has, it has considered a very important thing is the first time we have seen that in last 5 to 10 years, that a lot of benefits have been given on the individual taxation. Now, as you must have seen today, in today's newspaper, there was a front headline that 90% people will be out of the tax bracket. Because, 90%. The data may change. I'm just discussing a small thing. The point which comes here is the beauty of this part is, you know, there are two taxes, direct taxes and indirect taxes. So the direct taxes, everybody knows that there are many less persons paying direct tax, and the indirect taxes are being paid by so many persons. So when even if you reduce the direct tax part, the indirect tax contribution which is increasing, 1,56,000 crores, it is always on the increase side. The registrations in GST has increased to 1,40,000 crores. So this basic compensation will be done from the GST. It is the GST collection which is basically helping the government in coming out with this strong, important changes in the Income Tax Act. This part is already covered by my fellow speakers. Next, please. Now, I'll be discussing mainly with the new tax regime. You know, in the new tax regime, the major amendments in the Income Tax Act is concerning the new tax regime. When we talk about the changes in the tax structure, please be very clear that there are two regimes in income tax. One is old regime and one is new regime. So there is no change in the old regime, which should be kept in mind. Old regime has been continued the same. Whatever changes has been proposed is in the new tax regime. And new tax regime, in short, basically it is towards, in short, in future,
the government will be basically coming out with the old scheme and will be now focusing only on the new tax regime. The intention is very clear. The objective of the government is to avoid with all the deductions and exemptions and reduce the tax structures and make the law simpler. This is the objective. This is the way forward, for which they cannot, I mean, the deductions and exemptions in the country like India, they cannot do away with this savings part. They have to promote the savings also. But the objective of the government is clear. The concept is clear. You have to move towards a tax regime in which there are least of deductions and exemptions, making the law simply. That is the main objective of the government. But it will take some time. It's just a ladder towards that. And in times to come, 2-3 years, we will find that the old regime will come out and this new regime will be operational. And this intention has been made clear by making it and by default. I mean, if you don't choose either of the scheme, it will be by default taken as the new scheme is one which will be applicable in your case. So with this background, important change is that there were basically 7 steps, 5 steps has been done in the new tax regime. One more thing I will just add here is, you know, in capital gains part, capital gains mein jo lot of things, lot of talks are going on in this time. There will be many changes in the capital gains, because in capital gains there are 2 sections, section 54 and 54F, which has been amended in this in this time, that these exemptions have to be taken away. So this particular thing which I was saying is that concept has been brought in capital gains taxation also, where the amount of investment has been restricted to 10 crores. We'll discuss subsequently. The object point I am trying to highlight is in the way forward, the exemptions and deductions will be little bit reduced and simplicity will be more focused upon. Now, as I said, there is no change in the old regime. New regime will come by default. Next slide, please. Next. I have come out with an example which was given in the newspaper today. I directly quote on with that. Next. Skip over. This. You must have read this in the newspaper today. So, explaining finer points, it is better to come out with this small presentation, which will explain the entire change in the present new taxation scheme which has been done. This was in the newspaper today. Looking to paucity of time, I just copied it from here. If you very broadly understand the new changes, we will find this, that in case we are talking of individual taxations. In case our amount is up to 7 lakhs, then there is no need for any investments and entire income will be tax free. There will be no taxation on the individuals, because in this Purani Pranali and Nai Pranali, in old scheme, there are a lot of deductions available in the Income Tax Act. So if anybody asks you a question, which scheme is better for me, it is not possible to give a particular answer, because the answer depends on so many things. Whether we are having housing loan, whether we are having NPS, whether we are having Mediclaim, deductions under ATC. So if all these things are to be seen, any single answer is not practically possible. If anybody gives, it is a wrong phenomenon. It is a wrong answer. It depends on the case. But to have a broad understanding is this, which has been nicely compiled in the newspaper article today, that up to 7 lakhs, if you have no deduction, then also there is no liability. So if the income is less than 7 lakhs, you need not go for investments. Up to 15 lakhs, if you have all other deductions available, then this old scheme is still beneficial, provided you should have this investments in your individual income tax. And above 20 lakhs, they will be almost safe. This is the crux of this new amendment in the Income Tax Act regarding changes in the tax structure. Am I clear on this? Next. So now will be covered, because the amendments are so many amendments are there. I try to cover from my presentation only. You will not change here. Whatever amendments I think are applicable and relevant for the gathering here, I will try to cover those amendments. The tax structure I have discussed. No change in the old regime. changes are in the new regime, and new regime basic concepts we have seen. One important change here is in case of surcharge, persons having income above 5 crore. What I said is the beauty of this budget is it has tried to cover and it tried to cater to all the segments of the society. Lower income group has been considered. Now, in income tax, in case your assessee is having income above 5 crores, the surcharge amount is 42%. So the tax amount comes to 42%. Now that 37% is the surcharge. So in that surcharge has been reduced, which gives the effect of reducing the income tax by 3%. So in case of assessees having income above 5 crores, there is a reduction in income tax by 3%. So that particular thing is also been done because always the super high, high net worth individuals have always grievance of paying so much of amount of tax because 42% is not a small amount. So that particular 3% reduction has been given in their case also. Besides, one important amendment here in this budget proposed is in case you are paying premiums above 5 lakhs, then the maturity proceeds of the insurance policy will be taxable in the particular year. So the objective is insurance policies which are planned with the purpose of investment in the objective has to be taxed. So any premium above 5 lakhs paid in a year will the maturity part, when it will be matured, the income will be taxable. One important amendment has been in capital gains, section 54 and 54F. You know, the brief background of section 54 and 54, I will just briefly explain. Suppose you are selling a house and you are purchasing a new house. The benefit is available in section 54 of the income tax act. And the second section is section 54F. Now I'm selling a land, I'm selling an agricultural land or residential land and purchasing a new house. The benefit is available in section 54F of the income tax act. This is the basic concept. Now what amendment has been proposed is the house which is purchased should not exceed, the cost of house which is going to be purchased should not exceed 10 crores. This is the cap they have introduced. Lot of talks were going on when I said that the government is moving towards tax structure in this very low deductions and exemptions are to be given. Lot of talks were going on why this 54 and 54F reduction is available. It should be reduced or the limit should be there. That has been done in this budget. In times to come, we may see that the limit is reduced further. It depends on the case. But this is also a very significant amendment because in Bhopal city it is okay, but in metros and other places, 10 crores is a very small amount. And this amount, this particular amendment may have a significant impact on the income tax part. Now the point which I want to highlight here is, so budgets में amendment होते हैं particularly regarding tax structures. These amendments are basically when the law is drafted at that time, many technicalities are not seen. Now this amendment has given rise to a lot of tax debates, debates in our professional group, because this amendment is having some complexity in section 54F of the Income Tax Act, in the sense that 54 में क्या होता है कि when the sale price capital gain is to be invested. Suppose I have sold a house for 15 crores and the cost was 8 crores. So 7 crores is my capital gains. So I have to invest capital gains and then entire amount will be tax free. In case of 54F, where I am selling a residential house, I have to invest the gross amount, not the capital gains. So the complexity which has arisen is how that investment of 10 crores will be considered while working out the capital gains exemption. Point which I want to say is the drafting, the amendments which come in the Income Tax Act, 70% amendments come because the lawmakers at the time of drafting the law skips some important points. So this particular point, when when the budget will be passed subsequently, this will be taken care of and they will be coming out with some particular amendment or clarification in this regard. To understand, as of now is 10 crores is the ceiling above which a person cannot take benefit of section 54 and 54F. Minister sir will be very happy to meet this provision that MSMEs, now the payments, this MSME concept will be very, very important nowadays. We have to ensure that all, I mean, from industry's point of view, all these persons have to get registered in MSME Act, because this act has been very clearly coming out with this proposal that any payments which are due to MSME will not be allowed as deduction to the persons who is liable to pay the amount. We have a section 43B in the Income Tax Act, which was as of now considering for only taxes. Suppose I have collected GST, I have not paid it. I have collected provident fund, I have not paid it. Then the Income Tax Act had a provision that those amounts will not be allowed as deduction while computing the total income of the assessee. Now this 43D has been amended to cover payment to MSMEs also. So what is important from the industry's perspective is all the persons who are in the definition should get themselves registered in MSME Act, which people are doing it. Besides very much benefits available in financing also, in income tax also, this concept has been very much clearly there that in case there is a payment due and it is not paid, then the person will not be allowed the deduction of the expenditure. One more important amendment proposed which will be beneficial to all the persons is that in income tax we have a presumptive taxation scheme. In presumptive taxation, what is the concept is that the person is not required to have books of accounts and a particular turnover is there. You just simply pay a particular amount of tax, 6% in case the receipts are by check and 8% in case it is by cash. So in case of presumptive taxation, this limit has been increased to 3 crores for business and 75 lakhs for professionals. Now again, when you read, I mean, when you listen to the budget of Madam, you will see the limit has been increased to 3 crores and 75 lakhs. But when you read the final points, there is a cap which says that the receipt should be by check. So this is suppose here, example, just giving an example, corporate hospitals nowadays are employing doctors. Now, if the doctors are getting professional charges from the hospital. Now the hospital is paying 45 lakhs to a doctor annually. The doctor need not maintain his books of accounts. It has to just, she or he has to offer 50% of the income and nothing, no books are required to be maintained. Now, if the amount exceeds 50%, they are required to get the accounts audited. Now, the concept in, I mean, the proposal which has been done in this amendment which has been proposed is that 50 lakhs limit will be increased to 75 lakhs. So all professionals whose receipts are 75 lakhs will not be required to maintain books of accounts and they will have to pay presumptive taxation by offering 50% of their income and no liability to maintain any accounts. But there is a cap of 5% receipts on that particular income. Appeals का जैसे राहुल जी ने डिस्कस इसमें अपने प्रेजेंटेशन में कवर किया था. What is going on in the present faceless concept? All the appeals are now online. So a lot of pressure has been there and a lot of appeals are pending in the income tax structure. So recognizing that pendency part, a proposal has been here in the finance bill that small appeals, they will come out with the rules and regulations. Smaller appeals will be delegated to the joint commissioner. So now initially the commissioner appeals has the power to listen to the appeals, but to cover the pendencies and clear the backlogs, joint commissioner appeals will be given smaller appeals. The rules will come so that will be reducing the basically pendency of the income tax department. 2-3 important proposals have been regarding startups. Startups the limit was expiring in 2023. The amount, the year has been increased by 1 year. They increase every year. Again, they have increased to 2024. So the added amendment proposed is that in case they have a carry forward, brought forward losses, then that losses will be allowed to be carried forward for 10 years. One more important amendment in TDS, just 5 minutes, I conclude then. Amendment proposed in TDS is, there is section 194N of the Income Tax Act. The objective of 194N was basically to give the information to the government how much cash dealing a person is doing. For example, there is a businessman, it withdraws cash and incurs cash expenditure. The objective of 194N was to bring TDS on cash withdrawal. The whole objective was to ensure that government gets the data, how much is the cash withdrawal, so that assessee can be covered. That was the objective. Now this was giving problem to a genuine taxpayers. For example, cooperative society. Cooperative societies basically are not with that perspective. The benefit is given to the cooperative societies in this case by increasing the limit to 3 crores. So in case of cooperative societies, they withdraw cash by up to 3 crores, their TDS will not be deducted. That's basically a benefit to the cooperative society. Why I'm giving the example is the objective when this section was introduced in the finance bill was to give the government a data of how much the assessee is withdrawing cash. The more this cash withdrawals are there, government is giving a signal is given that this person is introducing bogus cash expenditure. That was the objective. So to remove hardship to genuine assessee, this section has been amended to provide that 1 crore limit will be 3 crore for cooperative societies. As we discussed in the budget scenario that tourism has been given a lot of emphasis in this budget. कि tourism को improve करना है to have the. So with that added, linking amendment has been done is there is a provision regarding TCS. TCS is when we overseas tour packages में पहले 5% का TCS rate था. Now it has been increased to 20%. What is the objective? Objective is to discourage foreign tourism because discourage but at the same time ensure that the tax comes on foreign persons who are paying such a big amount on abroad tourism. They should be covered in taxation bracket. So the TCS rate has been increased from 5% to 20% in case of overseas tour packages. Online gaming taxation का rate 30% कर दिया है, and a section has also been introduced in which this income will be separately taxed. One more, sir, आपके cooperatives से संबंधित one more amendment is there, which is very important. Is lot of this benefit has been given to tax. What up till now, what was happening is there is a section which says that any 2 lakhs के ऊपर अगर कोई भी cash receive करते हैं तो there is a 100% penalty on the person who is receiving the cash. So अभी तक drafting अगर क्या हो रहा था कि the cooperative banks and the head office, Apex Bank, cooperative and tax, this is the structure. So till cooperative banks there was exemption given, they can receive cash also, loans they can give as well as receive. But tax were not covered in this particular point. So this amendment has very intelligently and maybe representations must have gone. So this has been considered and tax are now excluded. So tax can receive to up to 2 lakhs and as well as loans. That is important and welcome amendment for tax. One last amendment I will discuss, which will be also relevant for the gathering here is what was happening is suppose a person has purchased a house. Now he has taken a loan and interest is being paid on the loan. So what he was doing is he or she was doing is that when he was getting income from house property, he was claiming deduction of the interest amount against income from house property. And when that house was sold, that interest was also taken as deduction in cost of improvement. So now the amendment has come that in case you have taken a loan against a house property, then you cannot take benefit of that interest when you are selling the house property. It can be only at one place. This was people were taking benefit at 2 places. So the amendment has come, it can be only at 1 places. So with this, I'll end up my deliberation. The amendments are many as you already covered in the presentation, but I have tried to summarize it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for discussing in detail about the new tax and the old tax regime and the exemptions and deductions which are being called out in the budget. So I'm thankful to all the panelists who discussed here in detail the union budget and especially the macroeconomic trends and the infrastructure and its financing impact on industry and MSME and the taxation part. So I'm here. I will take few questions from the audience who joined online. So I can ask few questions here. After that, I will take few questions from the audience who are sitting here. Please jot down your questions if you have any. So the first question is to Mihir sir. Like skill development is very important for the youth and for everyone who is in the setup.
Right.
Yesterday there has been an announcement on the National Apprenticeship Program. So how this program will help the youth or the students to just build up their skill?
So this is something which is definitely going to be helpful because the industry is on lookout for people. You know, and there are times, I mean, in fact, this has been discussed in some other forums also. It was discussed extensively. Recently, we had some meeting regarding this with industries around, see, we this, how it would help is it would actually give ample work opportunity. It can also, to youth who are probably, for some reason have not gone to full scale, like how can I say, a systematic education. They can enroll themselves in these. And as I mentioned, see, right now, the way manufacturing industry is going, there are a number of avenues where we are looking at skilled and semi-skilled people. And it is not just here. In fact, would be, I would say, pan-India opportunities to exist. And which is again something, as I mentioned, like with all the different initiatives that have been taken up on specific skilling areas. One of the things also which has been discussed again in some other forums earlier has also been, to work extensively with technical training institutes. A lot of private educational institutions have also started, skilling programs in different areas which are not the conventional courses. So I would say it is a very welcome move for grassroots and definitely to increase employment. And as an industry, we are actually more and more on lookout for skilled people. There is definitely a shortage as well. And I can say that from my personal experience also that our HR person is always looking around for people, not necessarily at medium or high level, but at a level where we regularly meet operators with basic skills on the machine operating or even fitting. There is a very extensive demand for, with all the infrastructure development coming up, there is a very high demand for people maybe skilled in, say, electrical or electricians or even, plumbing or all kinds. So it goes across the board.
Thank you, sir. So yesterday there was also an announcement on the municipal bonds and how we can make city ready for these municipal bonds. So my question is to you, Rahul sir. What is the concept of this municipal bond and how we can or how the municipalities or the other sector can participate?
So the concept of bonds, this municipal bond is not new. It's something which has been there, and I think so we talked about it that Bhopal and Indore have probably tried it. I think this is one of the unique way in which the funding can be raised for infrastructure related projects, in which you as a municipal body need not be dependent only on the grants and the budgets that are being allocated to you, but you directly go to the investors market and ask for the funding and financing from there. So could be of various types, but essentially it is going to the open market and asking for money, which I think is an important channel, and there is a significant demand in the market, in the bond market, which is perhaps not being tapped so much. But now with the indication of coming right from the Government of India level, I think this is something which perhaps would get picked up and would ease the municipal finances, can ease the municipal finances significantly.
Okay, thank you, sir. So now the next question is on my Sehkar Se Samriddhi, that is on the cooperative sector. Yesterday the government talked about the computerization of tax. Simultaneously, it is also talked about the national cooperative database. We just want to understand, sir, what is this national cooperative database?
One of the landmark things the Ministry of Corporation has done is that now with tax computerization, as you know, the base needs a database. So the part in its even in the process of compiling a database for that. So the details are still coming, but now I think it is going to take it to a larger cut around all the packs in the country, what they do, what are the businesses they are into it. Various financial and non-financial parameters will be also included in that. Rather, there is a on the back group side, we are already compiling NABARD at our head office level, a database. So a lot of things will get into it, and it will ultimately idea is that as they say, data is the new oil. So it will lead to much better evidence-based solutions to problems. So that's the architecture in which it is moving. This is one area in which I think data was at one integrated place not available. So now that gap is also.
Thank you, sir. I hope definitely the national cooperative database will help out this sector a lot. And my last question is to you, sir. Like how PAN as a common business identifier can be worked out, and what would be the implication of it?
It's also one of the very important thought by the government, because at present we find that the common map is under a lot of problems in PAN, Aadhaar, election card. So the government has to, which has been a vision also in this budget. This is going to be a good, if it is fully implemented, it will be benefiting and from the industry perspective, the compliance which we was, which we talk about, the ease in doing business, that is not the important thing. And even the common public, if we have so many bank accounts, they are always going for the KYC, people are troubled because they at times it's difficult. So not only this has to be done, it's a very good thing and to be done immediately.
Okay, thank you. So after listening all the speakers and everyone, I think audience must have also few questions in their mind. So we are having shortage of time, so we will take 2-3 questions from the audience. So Mike, Lauren.
Very good afternoon to everybody, and thank you for such an intensive information bringing out to all of us. I'm Kriti Trivedi from IIDM. One thing which took out for me in this budget was that government is like slowly showing the indication for climate friendly crops such as millets. India is one of the largest producers for millets, but it is not the largest consumer of millets. Yes, we are like, I would say like our community is not ready to accept millet as a major crop. So what should be the action plan which Madhya Pradesh as a state should have to bring millets into, or bring, keeping this budget in mind, to bring millets into our regular, again, like these millets have come into like the high-end population crops from earlier, like past, it was like गरीबों का अनाज था, आज ये अमीरों का अनाज भी convert हो गया है. I'm coming with an experience, like I was part of like designing policies in Myanmar for food design, for action plan for food. So with the World Food Program and FAO. So there they brought the focus on rice and millet, but how we as a state in Madhya Pradesh are going to take care of that? Because again, millets need high end of processing than the other crops. Odisha has something for ragi, but Madhya Pradesh, we are focusing Kodo, Kutki. So how we are trying to be inclusive for all other millets, as well as what action plans we have for Madhya Pradesh.
Should be a
But yes, I think the international year of the millet is there. I am no expert on millets, but whatever little I know about it, it was always there in our planet. For a period of time, it got out of our planet in some. In fact, now also, I was the other day, 2-3 visits we had made to Madhya. And millet is very much in the villages and now you can say that it is making a sort of a intensive resurgence. It's just that now as they say, it is the nutri cereals and all. But it was there, and that nutrition act is correct, gets strengthened by this law. Obviously, it is a climate resilient crop, not only just for the sake of climate resilient crop, it also is a very necessary for to be a diversified. As far as the government of Madhya Pradesh is concerned, I am sure, and I have looked at their economic survey and their policies. They are very, very focused on millet cultivation. There is a large area which is. And there are, from Nabard side, we can say, we in Madhya Pradesh are also running quite a few pilots in which we are trying to create a value chain. It's like the point that needs to be stressed is that just don't work on the production end. You need to work on the whole value chain. And the only problem with millet, if I can say so, is that processing kaise hoga? It's an RT series, right? So the processing and the storage part. So one needs to sort of build a value chain for that. So very good results we are getting. Otherwise, also in Indoti, Matlab, that whole period. And Kodukutki is definitely what Ragi is to Karnataka, I would say Kodukutki is to Madhya Pradesh. So there may be other millets also. So let's say that's a flagship millet for Madhya Pradesh. Point is that how to use this as a mechanism to also increase farmers' income, at the same time, how to also make sure that the yield increases happen. So with this focus, I think it is very much there in the policy, and it's a very good thing that Philip will be given to that. In fact, the whole now point is that even for gluten-free and all that, now new attributes are our lifestyle changes have made sure that we need to have more millets in our family.
So do you see any time it to be part of PDS schemes?
I think you mentioned Odisha. I think there is a millet mission there. There are a few other districts, and I'm sure that the government of Madhya Pradesh will be. But more importantly, it should be a part of the ballot, and whichever form it happens. And I'm sure that I enjoyed quite a bit of the millet kheer we had the other day in our office. So it's
Can I add two more things? One is Madhya Pradesh government is also established one millet mission under agriculture department. Agriculture department is promoting through various ways, and IUC is also promoting parallel. Recently, we have organized G20 summit at Bhopal, and each and every participant of G20 has got very good product of local millets, which is manufactured by small one MSME established by AIGGPA. So there are a lot of efforts every government and department is making to promote millets. Parallelly, this is true. Now this is the अमीरों का भोजन, तो उनको जागरूक करने के लिए हम सबको बहुत सारे अभी कैंपेन चलाने की जरूरत है. मैं रेगुलर ज्वार कुट्टी पौधों को सब खाता हूँ और खिलाता हूँ. Thank you so much.
Any other question? One more question. Actually, my question was also related to that. First of all, thank you everyone for such a nice discussion on budget. और बहुत सारे perspectives हमारे budget को लेके clarify हुए. So thank you so much. And Dr. Umami Shankar from Bajpayee University. So I wanted to ask Rahul sir, first about consumption, boost to consumption in long term. So how this millet production and stress to millet will change consumption pattern in long term? Do you see that is going to happen, particularly in food consumption? That is my question.
So my reference to consumption was more around overall consumption, which includes food products, includes the expenditure that you make on households, the one that you make on transportation, so on and so forth. So my reference was overall consumption. Coming specifically to millets, I think as the food patterns and the lifestyle changes emerges, of course, millet is something which which would take precedence. It's always assumed that the discovery, the scientists discover few things, then it goes to the local community, and it from there it comes to the government, and then the government takes action around it, and then the propulsion of the phenomena actually takes place. So I think that the entire focus at the moment is up to the level of government. I'm sure pretty much in this year, there would be some actions which will be taken up to kind of generalize this, make it more popular from a consumption point of view, which would automatically get into it being a more main course rather than a commodity. So hopefully with that, minutes will also. Thank you.
Last question, sir, please give the mic.
मसल मनीष दीक्षित, मैं एक छोटा सा रिपोर्टर हूँ। केवल मैं जो थोड़ा बहुत इकोनॉमिक्स के बारे में सोचते हैं, आरबीआई बार बार बोल रहा है कि फ्रीबीज को हमको बंद करना चाहिए या रिड्यूस करना चाहिए। हमने फिर जो फ्रीबीज का जो है वो कंटिन्यू रखा है, और चिंता इसलिए होती है क्योंकि 45 लाख करोड़ का जो बजट है उसमें से करीब करीब जो मैंने कैलकुलेट किया था 42% हम बोरोइंग पे हैं, और 45 लाख में से 10 लाख हम केवल इंटरेस्ट पेमेंट पे ले रहे हैं। तो ऐसे सिचुएशन में जो हम बात कर रहे हैं कि हमको ग्लोबल इकोनॉमी बनेंगे, हम ये करेंगे, तो आप लोगों को नहीं लगता कि इस फ्रंट पे भी बजट में कुछ होना चाहिए था? कोई भी इसको ले सकता है, तो ओपन।
आप जो कह रहे हैं उसमें yesterday उन्होंने ब्रेकअप तो पूरा दिया था। Again, I'm not exactly now, I come from hardcore manufacturing, but I feel यहीं पे जो उनका जो focus PPP की तरफ था, that government is not looking at making all the investments themselves, maybe involving.
सर पीपीपी का एक अभी बहुत बड़ा एग्जांपल है अपने सामने, वो अपने साथ बाकियों को भी डुबा रहे हैं।
That was the whole thing. I also know from वो अब फाइन ट्यूनिंग करना पड़ेगा। I mean, so sometimes it happens when you have too much exposure to the one specific company also. Maybe where you are increasing your spread a bit, it may help, rather than it coming from one source or one. Anyway, I won't get into specifics of that, but not that I don't know the details, so I shouldn't be commenting on it. So, but I feel, I mean, yes, interest burden में था, and what they very clearly mentioned also that I think this is where I think Amit ji may also be able to add कि एक point इन्होंने definitely बताया था कि I think with all the new tax regime and all, they're trying to probably involve more people, more collection. So that is probably one of the ideas, how the collection should increase instead of we know borrowings are there, but maybe increase the collection and reduce the gap. Because the gap that I have for 5.9% or something like that, I think. Trying to reduce. Yeah, and I think with the whole new tax regime, the whole idea is that get more and more people to pay, and even if they are paying a less amount, but get more people into the rather pay less and rather than. So maybe that's one way of doing it. On the PPP side again, probably get larger players to invest more. I mean, we are already seeing a lot of it going on in defense. A lot of privatization also somewhere was fleetingly mentioned again, maybe retail by the economy. But I think about some 50,000 crore something was mentioned as money to be raised through privatization, which maybe after some of the larger things have been privatized, maybe they're looking at privatizing all of the PSUs, which are also building houses. I mean, it's purely a personal take. I mean, nothing. I really can't comment too much on it till we get the fine.
Only one thing I will add here is, I don't. The question is good, but government then prepares the budget to see various sectors. Even defense has to be seen, infrastructure is to be seen, outflows are to be seen. Then they have to make a balance. Their effort is there. They have clearly told that the vision is to reduce the deficit by to 4.5% by 25-26. But it has some compulsions, political compulsions and other compulsions. The balance is trying to be made. The question is right from one side, but on the side of government, they have tried to make a balance, and then they will come out with these sources of funds gradually. Again, political compulsions are there, that has to be taken care of, that every government will.
Thank you, audience. Over to you. Thank you for moderating the question and answer session. Now I request Mr. Manoj Jain to please felicitate our speakers with the Bible painting. Thank you, sir. Before ending the session with the vote of thanks, I request all the invited guests to register themselves with the QR code, which is there in the gate registration. Now, I would like to invite Dr. Sunil to give vote of thanks.
Good afternoon, and all present here. Respected distinguished panelists, our most valued invited representative, our audience from government, industry, academic, community partners, political partners, my colleagues from AIGGPA and Madhya Pradesh State Policy and Planning Commission. I, Dr. Sunil Kumar Suryavanshi, advisor, Center for Economic Trade and Innovation, AIGGPA. It's my privilege to have been asked to propose a vote of thanks on this occasion. I, on behalf of the entire AIGGPA family, extend a very hearty thanks to Sri Vasant Singh, Sir, Member Secretary, Madhya Pradesh State Policy and Planning Commission, to accept our invitation to join the seminar and also brief about the union budget. I would like to thank Sri Vajpayee, Sir, Chairman AIGGPA, for his valuable input on budget analysis and its connect with skill development and its impact on micro, small and medium industry. I would like to thank Sri Nilkam Mehta, Sir, CGM Nabard, for the dish for his valuable analytic perspective towards agriculture graduate staff and agriculture modernization. I also thank Sri Amit Jain, Sir, Chartered Accountant, Bhopal, for explaining the advantage of tax slabs for middle class people and the impact on economy. I would like to express our sincere thanks to Sri Rahul Chaudhary, Sir, Principal Advisor, to share his view on the global perspective of the national budget and connect to green economy, innovation, and employment. Thanks to distinguished panelists for spending valuable time at AIGGP. A big thanks to our VC, Sir, Professor Sachin Chaturvedi, Sir, to motivate our scientists to organize events like this. My sincere thanks to our CEO, Shri Prati Kadila, Sir, ACO Lokesh Sharma, Sir, for quick administrative support. I would like to thank the media representative to cover the program. I would like to thank Dr. Swati Chauhan, advisor, SETI, for the successful moderation of the session. I would like to thank our audience, which is representative from government, industries, universities, academic institutions, and CSE. I would like to thank all the faculty members of AIGGP and Madhya Pradesh State Policy and Planning Commission for their participation and appreciation. I would like to thank Team SETI for their constant effort to make this seminar successful. I would like to thank institutional IT support for YouTube Live and other necessary support. I would like to thank our admin staff for necessary arrangement and support. Finally, I would like to thank the support staff for their necessary and timely support. Thanks to all of you being here with us today. It has been a great pleasure. Thank you. Thank you very much.
The land for the guests is arranged in the guest house of the institute. Also, we'll be having a group photo. The venue is ground floor lawn. Thank you.